I took a pear gummy, and it's sort of a matter of time until I can't talk anymore. So I'm going to answer as many of your questions as I can until we hit that point in time. Why did you lie in your diary? Isn't God supposed to know you're lying? Was it denial? Why, Daddy God? What was your relationship with your family like in college? What's a freedom you have now that you think others would take for granted? What was your first experience with alcohol? God, I'm getting high. Is my tongue swollen? What fundamentalist beliefs are you still working to untangle? What had a bigger impact on your belief system, your parents, or your church? What is the hardest friendship you had to let go of? I'm at a point where I'm feeling like I really need ice cream and maybe a waffle. What are your tips for making gay friends after leaving a conservative hometown? If you had the option to change how you grew up, would you? Who are your celebrity crushes? Advice on how to be happy. How do you tell if a girl likes you? What encouraged you to come out? What were the moments that led up to you leaving the church? Hello, welcome back to my couch. This is Cross My Heart. You guys really liked my last solo episode. I probably won't get high every time, but last time it was honestly kind of fun. Honestly, when you're asking me questions about the worst times in my life, I think I'm gonna get high to talk about them. I took a pear gummy, and it's sort of a matter of time until I can't talk anymore. So I'm going to answer as many of your questions as I can until we hit that point in time. And I hope this entertains you. And if it does, please leave a comment because your feedback means the world to me. Okay. Oh my God. This is how we're going to warm up for the episode. There's a creator I really love on TikTok. Her name is Paris Mwandwa, I believe. And I just love her brain. And I follow her on Substack and TikTok. She made a lesbian dating Wrapped, like kind of went through all the people that she was talking to. Okay, here's my Q1 2026 lesbian dating Wrapped. The first date I went on this year, horrendous. She had no idea it was a date, but it ended with her asking, oh, was this a date? So that didn't go well. Second date I went on this year in January, I didn't know it was a date. I ended the date with her leaning in to kiss me and me being a little bit confused because I sort of thought we were just hanging out. Then I went on a third date in January that ended in a hookup, kind of steamy, with a girl who I think is very cool, but this is the situationship I've been talking about for like months now that is now over. So most of my dates this month have been that situationship, and right now I am sans dates. I am not really seeing anyone, and I think I'm okay with that. Maybe later in the year I will feel more inclined to go on dates. I want to stay open to it. I think that as long as I am going on dates occasionally, I'm sort of signaling to the universe, the powers that be, that I am at least interested in dating. I'm not like closing myself off to that, but I'm not actively looking for anything right now on the apps. So that is my lesbian Q1 dating Wrapped. Okay, into your questions. Now time for your questions. I feel like I need to do like a YouTuber transition. When I was a kid and I watched YouTubers, I would hear them go, well, let's get into the video. And I feel like I need to do that now. Let's get into the video. Now time for your questions. Okay, that feels like the equivalent of a Disney Channel one to me, is doing a YouTuber's transition sentence. I posted an Instagram story asking you guys for questions, so I'm just going to answer them and hopefully we can chill out and have some fun while I get really high. This question is really sweet. Do you have any recent memories of queer joy or favorite memories of queer joy since you came out? I have a few that come to my mind immediately. One would be in college. Matthew and I went to different schools for the first 2 years of college. This is my childhood high school best friend. He is also gay, and he came and visited me while I was at school. We both were like wasted. We went to go get a cookie from Insomnia Cookies, and then we just like danced crazy in the courtyard. It was like pouring down rain. We were just like jumping up and down, dancing to songs. We slow danced for a little bit. We fast danced for a little bit. And it was just so silly and goofy. And I think in situations like that growing up, I would have been taught to be ashamed of moving my body freely or like having fun or being silly and laughing in a public space. But it was one of the first times I had been ridiculous in public, and it was so fun to do that with my best friend. Other favorite memories I can think of revolve around stand-up, because I am a stand-up comedian, and having people come up to me in person after a show and tell me that they relate to my story, or that they are also queer and are scared of coming out, or that their experience mirrored mine in some way, or like, oh, me and my girlfriend came to your show and we really relate to your content online. Like these moments where I realize that the stuff I talk about in my bedroom is stuff that actually has an impact on real people is a huge queer joy moment for me. I think about these moments for a really long time. When I get DMs that are really sweet about people who have been impacted by my work in some way, I save them in a folder, print them out, and hang them on my wall. It means a lot to me to know that the things that I say on the internet can be translated to like a real life person. Because right now I am truthfully alone in my house filming at a camera that no one else is watching. Like it is insane to be talking to a camera alone and then have a real life person tell you that you've impacted them positively. So I guess that's another queer joy moment for me. Queer joy. Wow, I just love gay people. Oh, something that comes to mind immediately is my first drag show I ever went to was in college. Avery invited me, and I was nervous for some reason. At that time, I was very closeted, so I was like, I'll just like see what's going on. I'll be an ally to the gay people and go to a drag show, and I did. And I remember watching these incredible drag performers dressed to the nines, incredible makeup, incredible lip syncing, incredible dancing, seeing an audience that was incredibly diverse in terms of gender expression, race, body shape, age, family status. Like there were kids there. It was a really full room full of all types of people. And I remember thinking, this is what church is supposed to feel like. And it was a big, big moment for me in terms of reconciling the way that I had grown up in church, being taught that it was inclusive, but knowing that it really wasn't. And so my first drag show was honestly really transformative for me in terms of how I processed my faith. So to see a group of people gathering in the most inclusive way possible, i.e. a drag show, was really powerful for me. What fundamentalist beliefs are you still working to untangle? I think I'll be untangling them forever. I think that when conservative Christianity is sort of baked into your bones, it's hard to get it out, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of stuff that I still struggle with today. The most recent thing that I've processed in therapy has been this idea that I am inherently bad. I think that as a Christian kid, you're raised thinking that you did everything wrong. It's quite literally biblical to believe that you were born evil and bad and that you deserve bad things just for being born. And I have historically, I guess, I've had a lot of self-confidence issues because of that. Like I just haven't been able to maneuver through the world confidently because I have this core belief that I am not good or that there is something wrong with me inherently. So that's been an interesting one to try to untangle. I read a book recently called Good Inside, and it's by Dr. Becky Kennedy. And she talks about the good inside theory, where right now we approach ourselves and our lives with this idea that we are bad inside, especially if you grow up in the church or if you grow up, I guess, just in middle America, honestly. Like a really common belief system is to have guilt and shame around being a person. And like if we do something wrong, it's because we're bad. So if I lie to a friend, it's because I'm bad. If I drink alcohol too much, it's because I'm bad. If I overeat, it's because I'm bad. Her book is challenging that idea and basically saying, okay, what if you make the radical decision to believe the opposite, that you're good inside? And I realized through this book that believing that I'm bad inside will get me nowhere. I could believe for the rest of my life that I'm bad inside and I will suffer so much unnecessary pain. Like let's say that a problem you're dealing with right now is that you feel like you drink too much or whatever is going on with you. If you drink too much and you tell yourself it's because you're bad inside, what's gonna happen? Like, oh, I drink too much because I'm bad. There is no solution to that problem. The flowchart ends immediately. You can't solve it. You didn't learn anything about the problem. You just learned I'm bad. And now you sit with like shame and guilt. And the only solution to that is like punishing yourself, which isn't really effective. But if you flip the narrative around, you can be curious almost. So you'd ask yourself a question like, why would Hannah, me, a person who's good inside, drink too much? And then you can be curious and you can think, maybe I'm drinking too much because I feel more confident socially. The answer might be because you feel sad or because you feel lonely. So then you can go to a therapist or a friend and address those problems of sadness and loneliness to then fix the drinking. By solving every problem from a place of believing that you're good, there are so many more opportunities and options for change when you're curious than there are when you're being shameful and making yourself feel guilty. And that's something that I have tried really hard to break down as I've deconstructed from a religious upbringing, but it sticks with you. Like I still struggle with it obviously all the time, but it's been a recent breakthrough of mine therapeutically that I'm really proud of, because I think the you're inherently bad, you're not good enough on your own is the core tenet of Christianity. And it's really, really tough to break, I guess, the damage that did to you as a kid. Damn, this is dark. Okay, what had a bigger impact on your belief system, your parents or your church? This is an interesting question. I think a lot of people don't know this about me, but I self-imposed a lot of the religious traditions I guess I believed in. I had a parent with a pretty severe mental illness, and as a result, my childhood was very unstable. A lot of times I was kind of stepping in as a parent in situations where I shouldn't have been. I know a lot of kids have felt that before. My parents were working really hard, and I'm really grateful for the work that they put in to put food on the table and things like that. But in my early teens and high school years, finding a sense of order in the church is what allowed me to stay sane. Like, I didn't have a stable childhood, but church was stable and rules were stable and rules made sense. I imposed rules on myself more strictly than my parents would have because they allowed me to have this sense of safety and security. My parents still obviously were very conservatively Christian, very much held the values of the church, but I think that there was an extent to which I found comfort in being the most Christian person in my house or the most Christian person in my friend group, in terms of like, I wanted to read the Bible the most out of everyone, and I wanted to be the best Sunday school student and the most religious. I wanted to do the most acts of kindness for my friends, and it all came from a place of control. It helped me make sense of the chaos. I also think when you grow up with shitty parents, it's nice to believe that it happened for a reason, if that makes sense. And I clung to the idea that there is valor in suffering, that the suffering that I was going through was for a reason, and that I would be rewarded for it later was really significant for me in the way that I processed my childhood trauma. And I know that had I not had the parenting situation that I had at home, I might not have clung to those Christian ideals as intensely as I did. But I did have friends that didn't necessarily believe things as severely as I did, even though we grew up in the same church. Next question. What are your tips for making gay friends after leaving a conservative hometown? This is a great question. You will find gay people because you are gay. I think that gay people put off sort of a pheromone in a way where they attract other queer people. So honestly, do whatever you like to do and other queer people will find you. I can't explain it. It's sort of like Bluetooth, like sonar. We will find you. So I took a woodworking class and I found a bunch of cool gay people. I do stand-up comedy and I found gay people, ceramics, singing, go to a musical. That's a little stereotypical, but they're probably going to be there. Google queer events in my area. Like, you just have to put a little bit of work into showing up at events, like regularly showing up places. But if you do that, you will find your queer community. Coffee shops. Gay people are always working at coffee shops. Is that homophobic? A little. The next question is, what is the hardest friendship you had to let go of? And probably Chloe, honestly. The Chloe that I talk about in my diaries was my best friend, still someone I look back on with so much love. If you didn't know, she now is a member of the church and is a more conservative Christian than she grew up to be, and that's a pretty tough thing for me. So we parted ways. Nothing happened, nothing blew up. We just sort of obviously had different ideals that were not compatible, and I wish her the best. But it was really tough. I think when you're a little kid, especially in like middle school, high school, there's this phase of middle school where it's so exciting to learn what other people's lives are like. Like, I was a really sheltered conservative kid, and to go over to my friends' houses and learn what they eat for dinner and what their parents do for work and what church they believe in and what their religion is and what they think the future could hold. I think just psychologically during that age, you like realize that everyone is different from you for the first time. And so she really opened my eyes in that way, and I gained so much perspective of the world through her. And so to lose that sucked, honestly. Like, it sucked so bad. Aside from me having such strong romantic feelings from her, I think that her friendship is something that I'll always be really grateful for, and I will miss. I look back on it so fondly. Next question is, why Daddy God? I answered it last time, but I'm going to answer it again because I think there's some of you here that are new. I called God in my diaries Daddy God. And I said this because I was a little Christian kid. It was very cool in Christian circles to say Daddy God in about 2016, okay? And I did it for way too long. I'll acknowledge that. It's crazy that I called him that in college. But it was normal. Like, I was going to church services weekly where people out loud, like, I'm talking young worship leaders to adult male 45-year-old pastors, were saying Daddy God when they would pray. And it's because at the time it was like trendy to pray Father God. Like, you'd say, Dear God, Dear Father God, Abba Father. Occasionally Abba is a word in the Bible that means father. And the people that wanted to show that they had sort of like the closest relationship with God would do Daddy God. Like, it was almost like a way to show off, I guess, for young Christian teens to say, Dear Daddy God, because you have the most father-child relationship of any of the other Christians because you call him Daddy. I hate that I just said it like that. Ugh. But yeah, calling him Daddy was because it was cool. And transparently, in church camp in middle school, I had a really hot camp counselor that said, Daddy God in a prayer, and I wanted her to think I was cool, so I said Daddy God, and then I never stopped. I just never gave it up. I thought it made me look so awesome and cool, and I just wanted to keep going. I loved attention, honestly, and I got some for saying Daddy God, and I still am getting that attention, so I guess it worked out. Next question. If you had the option to change how you grew up, would you? No. I don't know if I like this question. It's not your fault, but obviously I wish the things that happened to me as a kid didn't. Like, I think the normal couth cool girl answer to this question is like, I wouldn't be the girl I am today had I not grown up with the experiences that I did. But I don't really feel that way. I think obviously I wish it was different. Like, I currently have post-traumatic stress disorder from the way that I grew up. I have a lot of church trauma, like sexual trauma, mental health traumas that would not exist had I not grown up in the church. Had I not grown up with that belief system, I assume that my brain would have so much more capacity for thinking and helping and being a good friend. I have to do a lot of triage on myself. I have to do a lot of self-care to get to the level of functioning that I'm at right now because of the way that I grew up. And so I think it would be cool as hell if I didn't have to do that. I have to go to therapy every week. I have to do tons of coping skills. I have to take psych medication. Like, there's so many things that I have to do because of the way that I grew up that I just honestly don't want to do. I would have so much more time to be silly. I would have probably healthier relationships if I didn't grow up that way. Like, I don't want to have to deal with that shit. It sucks. And then on the other hand, I really like my life right now. Like, genuinely, I have really rich friendships. I live close to all my friends. We hang out all the time. I'm working on a goal for my career, like in stand-up. I'm working on writing a pilot about my life. I'm writing a new hour of stand-up. I'm performing in my favorite city all the time. Like, my life right now rocks. And I don't think I would have the life that I do had I not had the experiences that I grew up with. So it's sort of like a toss-up. I don't know. I like my life, and also I don't want to deal with the tough things that come along with growing up in such a traumatic way. Next question is, what's a freedom you have now that you think others would take for granted? I haven't really talked about this much online, and I feel a little bit choked up starting to talk about it, so I might cut this if it gets weird. But it was really frowned upon in the church that I grew up in for women to speak in the church. Like, in the church building, we were not supposed to talk. They weren't allowed to make any decisions about the church. Men were allowed to vote, women were not. And so there were a lot of ways in which my voice was not heard. Like, I was a really loud kid. I was a really crazy, silly kid that was always singing. I had really bad ADHD, and I would get in trouble for talking too much in class. And I was a very emotive, expressive, kind of hammy kid. Like, I loved attention and I would love to perform. And then when I was baptized in the church, I was quite literally barred from speaking, like not able to express my voice in the way that I once had. And I think that women take for granted how powerful their voices are. Like, I don't think you realize how not all women are allowed to fucking talk right now. That's why I feel so compelled to talk in the way that I do online and also via a podcast. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that right now in my life, I have a lot of friends that have pretty bad anxiety, and they don't want to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or work really hard on the goal that they're working towards because they don't want to mess up. And when I look back at my childhood and my young adulthood and remember that there was a point in time where I was not allowed to fucking talk, it makes me feel sick. And then I want to work 10 times harder. Like, there are women that are not allowed to speak, to leave their house, to drive. I had a professor once that said that the longest war in history has been the war on women, and I 100% believe that to be true. I think that women are treated like shit by men and by society, and we're taught to hate ourselves and to believe that we aren't powerful, to keep us from creating and changing the world and like doing the really powerful things that women do when they work together. And so I just really want to encourage women to fucking talk, like scream at the top of your lungs, whether that be in politics, in education, in your personal relationships. I just think women need to scream at the top of their lungs because they can, and especially on behalf of all the women that literally aren't allowed to right now. That is a bit dark, but it's really, really important to me that if you have something to say, I really think you should say it. Because if you don't, a man that knows so much less about that thing than you do will speak up for you. And people will believe him, and he'll be wrong. So I think women should talk more. Women should yap. That's my platform. 2026, women should yap. Do you think you gained or learned anything from the church that still applies? No. Just kidding. I think the words themselves were good. Love your neighbor as yourself. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Good lesson. I think that making sacrifices for the people that you love is a beautiful lesson, and we should do more of it. I think that the concepts of charity, like giving to the poor, beautiful lessons that more people should learn. I don't think that I needed the church to teach me those things. Like, of course, there are positive lessons that come out of growing in the community that I did. It's just that, like, you could also read another book that says that stuff. Like, there are self-help books. There are children's books that teach these lessons that don't require also, man shall not lie with another man. It is an abomination. I don't want to be rude to anyone that's currently religious, but my take on it is that you probably don't need the church to teach you those lessons. And if you do, perhaps you should look inward. Because I think it's kind of like a cop-out, I guess. I think it's kind of crazy to believe that all of your good lessons come from one book. And I think a lot of Christians do believe that it's like the one path and the one way. That's the whole part of Christianity, is like there is one way into heaven. And I think it's a lot more difficult. It takes a lot more cognitive flexibility to believe that there are multiple ways to live a happy, fulfilled, loved life. I would like to explore other options before settling on the idea that there is one path only, and if you don't follow it, you will die in an eternity of fire and flames in hell. That feels quite silly to me. I am more inclined to believe that there are lots of different ways to feel loved and fulfilled in your life that don't include the mass suffering of billions of people, you know? That might just be me. Might just be me though, but whatever. Who has helped you the most throughout this journey? A few answers that come to mind. First is Matthew and his mom. When I was leaving the church, there was a lot of logistics that needed to be done. I quite literally cut off my parents like middle of the night. Matthew came and picked me up at my house and we drove away, and I ended my contact with pretty much everyone that I knew at that point other than Matthew. And so when you go no contact with abusive people, there's a lot of like paperwork you have to do, like getting a new phone number, getting a new permanent address, finding a place to live. Like there's a lot of literal paperwork I had to do that Matthew's parents kind of held my hand through and really made possible, that I will be grateful for the rest of my life. And then Matthew, obviously, I talked to him in the last episode kind of about this, but he's just my guy. He is the most optimistic person I know. And I say that because he's optimistic about people. Like, he sees a person as the best version of themselves all the time. Like right now, I really want to finish my hour of stand-up. And there were about 3 weeks where I wasn't working on any stand-up at all. I was really burnt out, and I just like laid on my couch and did nothing and took edibles every day, and it wasn't super healthy. But Matthew still talked to me and looked at me through that time as though I was the best stand-up comedian in the world. And like, he talks to me about my goals as though they have already happened. And he's always spoken to me like I am so capable. And I think growing up the way that I did, everyone talked to me with the assumption that I was an idiot. Like, my parents talked to me that way. My church talked to me that way, just especially being a woman in that church too. And I really, really internalized that. So to have someone in my life that speaks to me as though I am capable of solving my own problems, as though it is inevitable that I will achieve all my goals, has been really, really powerful. I have a different blueprint for how to talk to myself now, in that I can also assume that I'm going to achieve my goals and that everything will work out. And he's just always done that. And I love him so much. I also did an episode with Avery, but she's also someone that has been really instrumental in me leaving the church and becoming who I am, because she challenged a lot of the beliefs that the church had taught me, specifically about having non-Christian friends, because the church had taught me that you could not be good without God. I was taught that you should stay away from non-Christian people because they would hurt you. I remember we did this exercise at church where they had a student stand on a chair and one student standing on the ground, and the student on the ground pulled at the student's hand that was on the chair, and he fell off the chair pretty quickly. And they did it again. They had the student standing in the chair try to pull the student on the ground up to his level, and he couldn't. It was too heavy. And this was an exercise that they said was to teach us that if you have friends that are not Christian, it's really easy for them to drag you down, and it's really hard for you to pull them up. So it's not worth it to surround yourself with not Christian friends, because they will end up hurting you. And so I spent a lot of my time in high school protecting myself, or I thought I was protecting myself, from people that believed different things from me. And then when I got to college, it became impossible for me to protect myself from those things, because I literally lived with Avery, who was an agnostic, bisexual, stoner, like really, really cool person. I watched her volunteer regularly be really civically engaged in our school and in our community. I watched her literally like lift me up off the floor while I was crying, sobbing from a panic attack. She showed me so much love, and she did not believe that Jesus Christ was her savior. And I was taught to believe that that was impossible. And then when I saw it with my own eyes, it caused a big rift for me spiritually. I think because of Avery, for the first time, I saw a future for myself that didn't involve devout Christianity. And I'm really grateful for her for showing me that perspective. And I obviously, like, she's one of my best friends now, and I love her with my whole heart. God, I'm getting high. Is my tongue swollen? I feel like my tongue is swollen, but I think it's just because I'm high. I love Avery so bad. I'm thirsty as hell. Do you guys ever want to talk about your deepest, darkest secrets? Y'all ever talk about your deepest, darkest secrets on the couch with an edible? I've taken an edible. It's pear flavored. You guys would like it. You can take one too. Not if you're driving. And I'm going to talk with y'all about the way that I grew up, if y'all don't mind. So I love water. I've been drinking water out of wine glasses lately to make me feel fancy, and it's really been working. Would you like to do more questions? Because I will. I'll do them. Who are your celebrity crushes? I don't really have any right now. The first one that's coming to my mind is probably Chase Infinity, because I just saw her in one battle after another and she was incredible. I love what she's bringing to the table. I had a really big crush on Anna Kendrick in the Pitch Perfect era. That was huge for me. Anne Hathaway. I have always been obsessed with Anne Hathaway. She will be my forever celebrity crush. I love her. She was incredible in Princess Diaries, Ella Enchanted, Ocean's 8, Devil Wears Prada, Les Mis, in a musical. I used to write fanfic about a lot of stuff. One of the fan fictions I wrote was Anne Hathaway and, what's his name? Wolverine. Hugh Jackman. I wrote fan fiction about real life Anne Hathaway and Hugh Jackman as a child because I was so obsessed with them. I love Anne Hathaway. I love her so bad. Oh my God, she's so hot and talented and smart and beautiful. Emma Watson. Again, a very intelligent, beautiful, stunning woman. But my forever celebrity crush probably always will be Anne Hathaway. Do you regret not realizing earlier that you were queer? Yes and no. I think that there's a part of me that knew I was queer very young and kind of shoved it away. Okay. The first time I remember thinking I was queer was as a very little kid. I was playing the board game, The Game of Life, with a babysitter. If I'm being honest with you, she was very hot and cool. I watched my babysitter get to the get married space on The Game of Life, and she puts two women in her car. Like when she lands on that space, marries a woman. And it shattered my brain. And I remember thinking, this is something I'm going to have to lock in for later. I'm going to have to remember later that it is possible for a woman to marry another woman. And then I didn't think about it for literally more than 10 years. I very vividly remember thinking, like, I want to marry another woman, and then not letting myself entertain that thought for so long. So I think I did realize I was queer at a pretty young age. I just didn't allow myself to entertain it. I don't regret it because I didn't have control over it, if that makes sense. It was not safe for me to actualize my queerness at the time, so I didn't. And as soon as I felt safe to express my queerness, I did so pretty quickly in college, and I'm really glad for that time. I think it would have been nice to have like a high school sweetheart or to be able to take a girl to prom. Like, those are very cool things, and I'm glad that so many kids today can do that. But I don't look back at that time with regret at all, because I just didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. And obviously, because I didn't know I was gay for so long, I can read my diaries out loud on the internet. And where would I be without that, you know? Wow, look at me now. Wow, look at me now. I'm getting really high, guys. Okay, we're approaching the time where I can't do any more questions. Advice on how to be happy. That is really sweet. I really like that question. I struggled for a long time with being happy. Like I said earlier, I have PTSD, and I was also diagnosed with major depressive disorder after going no contact with my family. And I think a lot of that just came from like a general grief I was feeling around losing my whole family and support network. Like, that sucked bad. So of course I had depression from that. Obviously the normal advice like journaling and going to therapy and getting meds are really helpful. My life would not be as good as it is had I not explored literal medical solutions to expressing my feelings, handling my emotions about trauma. So please do those things. But aside from that, always having something that you can look forward to is huge for me. Always putting something in my calendar that I am excited for at the end of the week. So then even though something could be going really terribly wrong during the week, I could be having a really depressed, anxious day, I can think, oh, it's going to be better tomorrow when I get to go see my friends for cocktails, or when I get to go to that comedy show. Like, that's always really, really big for me. Another one is living with your friends. Like, I've talked about this before. There's this weird idea that you have to live with a partner or live alone to be successful. I think a lot of just like Americans have internalized that idea that moving to a big city by yourself is like how you achieve greatness. And like when you know you've made it is like when you're alone in an apartment with a corporate job. And I would challenge you to challenge that belief. I think I live with my gay best friend of 7 years. We've lived together for a while. We live really well together. I live within walking distance of 5 of my closest friends, and we've chosen those apartments intentionally because we want to live close to each other. Oftentimes during the week, I'll go to a bar, walk to an open mic where all of my favorite comedy friends are, and I really challenge you to live by your people. It's like a little funny the way that I grew up in a cult and I sort of have one now. But I just think living near the people that you love is really, really powerful. I feel such a sense of safety knowing that if something were to go wrong in my life, if I had to suddenly grieve someone or lose a job or lose a pet, or if like something tough happened in my life, I have a support network. I have a safety net now, and I wouldn't feel as happy as I do if I didn't have that. So yeah, create your support network, live by your friends. It's fine to need people. It's cool to need people. Needing people is cool. Needing people is sexy. It's okay to live by people that you need, and it's okay to mutually need each other. And I'm pretty high, and I don't know how many times I've said need, but those are my thoughts. I like this one. Okay. Why did you lie in your diary? Isn't God supposed to know you're lying? Was it denial? This is a great question. Yes and no. I'm going to talk to you about a subject I've recently learned about. In George Orwell's 1984, he wrote about something called doublethink. It's essentially this idea that you can hold two entirely contradictory beliefs to be 100% true. So you can believe two things at the same time that cannot exist together. You can believe that the sky is blue and the sky is red at the same time, and you think those things are 100% true with your whole heart. And I think I was a product of a high control religion. So I dealt with doublethink, I dealt with cognitive dissonance, and there were multiple versions of me walking around. Like I had two minds, and one of those minds was a conservative Christian woman who protested outside of abortion clinics and thought that gay people were going to hell. There was a version of me that was very conservative and held those beliefs because if I didn't, I would risk connection to my family. Like when you're in a high control religion, the people around you are everything. They're all you have, and you're taught that you're nothing without them. So without God, without the church, and without your family, you are worthless. So in order to keep those things, you have to espouse these beliefs. So I would go to church and I would spout these horrible opinions about abortion, about women's rights, about gay people that I morally didn't agree with, but I had to agree with if I wanted to keep the love and the connections and the community that I had in my life. If I didn't want to be ostracized, I literally had to believe those things. And I think it's like a very human, natural response to crave community. So of course, I, as a kid, would say those things because I wanted community. Then there was another version of me, the real version of me, who in real life had friends who were gay and loved them with my whole heart. I loved music with explicit lyrics. I loved watching Glee and writing gay fan fiction. There was just a second version of me that was not allowed to exist at church, but still was who I really am. And so I don't think I was lying to God as much as I was being a different version of myself, like almost like a masked version of myself. By the time I had gotten to college, though, there was this element of performance. Like I was performing these journals for God. It like helped me rationalize the things I was doing, the ways that I was going to parties and trying drugs and having sex. Like those things I was raised to believe were like the worst things a person could do, were things that would irreparably damage me as a person. I don't know. A lot of my diary entries are me saying one thing and then doing something totally different in real life. And I think a lot of that had to do with this fear that I had of losing my connection to God if I told the truth. Damn, these are kind of sad today. I hope you're having fun. Is this fucked up? I'll do a joke, I swear. Okay, anyway, what was your relationship with your family like in college? Bad. I lived in my hometown, and Avery mentioned this on our podcast episode, but in college, I went to the school closest to my hometown, and my parents would just show up all the time. Like they would just pop up out of nowhere. They would just show up to my dorm as a surprise and check in and see if I was sinning or not. Because we grew up poor, they knew that education was important. Like they didn't have degrees, and because of that, they didn't have great jobs, and they wanted more for me, which I am really grateful for. And had I not gotten the scholarship that I did, I absolutely would not have gone to college. There are many women in the church that never go to college. My last semester, senior year of high school, I told a friend, I don't know if I can go to college if I'm just going to get married anyway. Like, what's the point of spending all that money on a degree if I'm just going to get married? But I was a pretty smart kid. I was at the top of my class. And so I ended up getting a full ride scholarship at this local university. And because of that, I was able to go. Like we just wouldn't have been able to afford it. It wouldn't have made sense for me to pay money for school if I was going to be married off quite literally within months of high school. So I ended up going to college, and my parents did not want me to live at school, but I like sneakily signed the dorm contract without them knowing, which is honestly one of the coolest things I've ever done. And I'm really grateful for that version of me that did that. And they would show up all the time. I don't know. They would call me multiple times a day. They tracked my location. They tracked all of my money. They like managed all of my money for me. I wasn't allowed to spend any money without them knowing, even like remotely through college. I obviously found ways around it because kids are sneaky, but yeah, it was really tense. I was really monitored in college. They were very scared of me learning new things and running away from them, which I did. So I kind of get it. They were kind of right. I did run away, and yeah, it was bad. I think 5-6 years ago was the last time we talked. We've been no contact since then, and it's been a lot healthier for me, a lot safer physically, mentally, emotionally. So it's better now. I'm really loving what we're doing now, but in college it was not ideal. I was very stressed all the time, very anxious. Ooh, I love when you guys ask me for advice. This is fun. How do you tell if a girl likes you? Guys, okay. When I first started dating women, my biggest problem was that I was shy. So I was almost like scared of making women uncomfortable. But some really good advice that one of my close friends gave me was, Hannah, if the woman you're approaching is gay, she wants attention from women. So quite simply, the clearest way to know if a woman likes you is to communicate about it. But before then, there's obviously signs like physical contact, eye contact, texting you frequently. Like, think about the ways that you express that you like being around someone. And if you see that in your crush, they probably like you. I think that we play all these games with ourselves, but my intuition, and I assume many women's intuition, is pretty good, and you have a good sense of whether or not someone's interested. So I think that you probably need to stop panicking and ask her out or something. Ask her out or something. See what happens. DM me if it goes well. If it doesn't, I don't want to know. I don't want to know that my advice was bad. But I have only gotten good things from being upfront and communicative about what I want. If I'm into a woman and I don't know if she likes me back, I will ask her out. I think that's the easiest thing to do where you don't kill yourself. Like, it can be exhausting to be wondering whether or not someone's interested in you, and asking them on a date is honestly the best way to stop freaking out about it. So I would really recommend, if you're getting some signals, I would recommend asking her on a date. Like, usually what I'll do is, oh, I think I've been really having fun spending time with you lately. I think you're really sexy. I'd love to buy you a drink. Or, you look so beautiful tonight. I'd love to buy you a drink. Whatever feels right to you. Just literally ask her on a date. Make it very clear that it's a date. The longer you go kind of in the in-between phase, like falling in love with her without knowing if she likes you back, the more painful it's going to be. So pretty much very early on, when I know I'm interested in someone, I'll ask them out usually. And it's only gone well for me so far. So I would highly recommend. Okay, next question. What encouraged you to come out? I didn't really come out. Honestly, Oh my God. I guess this is what you're wondering, is my parents. And I never came out to my parents. They still have not been told I'm gay. I assume they know I'm gay because I talk about it on the very public internet, and like they have access to that. But I never told them. Me going no contact with them had nothing to do with me being gay at all. It was a lot of like emotional trauma, a lot of like mental illness stuff that we were dealing with as a family that I couldn't be safe around, and that's why I had to leave. Had nothing to do with me being gay at all. I did not come out to them. I assume they know, but yeah, I didn't come out to them. The people in my life who are my favorite people, my safest people, the people I love the most, pretty much knew I was gay before I did, so I didn't have to come out to them. They just kind of told me I was gay and then I realized it much later. This question I get in one form or another a lot, and it's like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? When did the glass shatter? Like, what were the moments that led up to you leaving the church? Damn, I haven't thought about this in a while, which is kind of tough. I was presented with a lot of information that I didn't morally agree with when I was a member of the church. I remember feeling weird about the anti-abortion stuff I was raised with, and I felt weird about anti-gay conversation because I knew and loved gay people, and I felt weird about these Bible verses that allowed things like slavery and sexual assault because I didn't morally agree with those things. And I, over time, had this big pile of stuff that I had been told I had to believe in because God said I had to, because my family said I had to, because my church said I had to, and I risked losing them if I didn't believe those things. And I think eventually this pile got so big that I couldn't ignore it. And a few of the last things, like the heaviest things on that pile, I think, First, Matthew coming out was really big for me. He was my best friend in high school, and he came out as gay, and that was significant in my decision to leave my religion because I loved him so much, and I don't think I could stomach believing or being a member of a community that thought that he was bad or thought that he deserved eternal damnation. Like I couldn't internalize that, so that was really big for me. And then I remember right before I went to college, I went on a mission trip to Jamaica, and I wasn't feeling very connected to God at the time. I was feeling really out of sorts with my faith and questioning whether or not I still wanted to be an apostolic Christian. And on this mission trip, I remember thinking, okay, I'm not believing in Christ right now. I'm going to fake it. I'm going to put on an act and be a pretend Christian. So I did this like very amplified version of Christianity where I was like singing and dancing and like putting my hands in the air to do worship. I like faked my prayers. Like I was acting. I was performing Christianity to a crazy extent and believing none of it. And so many people throughout that trip came up to me and was like, wow, Hannah, this week you are so on fire for God. And I remember in my heart going like, no, I'm doing improv. Like I'm not on fire for God. I'm yes-anding you. Like I'm fully doing a bit right now with everyone on this mission trip. And it felt interesting. I kind of had this realization that people, quote, seeing the Holy Spirit in me or like seeing me on fire for God wasn't real. Like Christianity is a performance, and it can be. Like people saw God in me because I was talking like a Christian, not because I felt like one. I don't know if that makes sense. That was huge for me. And then another one, I had a mentor who I watched get married when I was in high school. And most of the marriages in the church that I grew up in were either arranged or figured out through courtships. So either the elder would arrange two people to get married, or you could go the second route of courtship where essentially two young people would literally see each other. A man usually would tell the elder that God has told him that he should marry a woman. So a 18 to 30-year-old man, whatever, would go to the elder and say, God has put it on my heart to marry Hannah or Rebecca or Sarah or whatever her name is. And then the elder would approve the marriage. And usually it's like just like a horny teenage boy seeing a hot girl for the first time, and then like they feel like getting a boner is the same as the Holy Spirit talking to them. And these two people who have maybe never met before, maybe met at church a couple times, would then be betrothed, like would be engaged, would be married. And usually engagements lasted like 6 weeks, like really, really short engagements. And so I watched my mentor, my personal spiritual mentor, who was a bit older than me, go through this process of getting married. And after her wedding, she like spilled all the details about like the wedding and sex and like what the whole thing was like. But she told me that she wasn't attracted to her husband. And she said that on her wedding day, she was like walking down the aisle praying that God one day would give her attraction to her husband. And she was praying to God that one day she would get to fall in love with her husband because it's what she'd always wanted. And I watched her like as years go by, grieve those things, like realize that she was never going to get to be attracted to her husband. She was never going to get to be in love with him. And she had become okay with that because she had told me, she's like, well, marriage is an act of obedience. It's not an act of love. So I'm being married because God told me to, and I obey God, not because I love my husband. And watching that happen made me feel sick. Like watching someone who I looked up to make so many concessions in her life and in her marriage when I think she deserved to fall in love with someone that she was attracted to, like watching her not get to do that made me really sad and really scared for my future. And I didn't want to marry someone I didn't love. I watched a lot of old men marry young girls. I watched a lot of queer people end up marrying into straight relationships, like things, I don't know. I just didn't want that for myself. I wanted something more. And that was a big, big transition for me. And then also going to college, meeting my college roommate, Avery, meeting people who were different from me, and then realizing that some of the coolest, best people in my life were not Christians, allowed me to picture a world where I could also not be a Christian and still be a good person. If that answers your question. Okay, a couple more. Would high school Hannah be surprised that you do stand-up now? No, I think she'd be excited. I don't think I knew about stand-up as a young kid, or I thought it was just something that older men did. So I think it'd be kind of something I wouldn't have pictured for myself, but I always wanted to be a performer. I was a singer. I was a bad singer. I was in a cappella groups in high school and college, but I was so bad at singing. I did vocal percussion badly, like really bad beatboxing for my high school and college a cappella groups. I remember we did a cover of Here by Alessia Cara. They're like, I'll be over here. And I had to beatbox to that song, which is incredibly slow. And there's a video of it somewhere and it's horrific. But I've always wanted to be a performer. And I think that this really aligns with what I always pictured for myself. So no, I don't think I would have been surprised, which is kind of fun. It's fun to see the ways that young me and adult me are the same. I know a lot of what I talk about online is like how much I have grown and changed and like how crazy I was as a kid. But there's a lot of ways where adult me is really similar to what I wanted as a child, and I love that. I think that's beautiful. Last question. I feel like I should go get ice cream. I kind of want ice cream. That sounds really good. Okay. How to find what was your first experience with alcohol? Okay, my first experience with alcohol is actually not in my diaries. It was the summer before college. If you didn't know this about me, I grew up in a family of wedding cake decorators. So like my grandma taught my dad, who taught me how to make specialty wedding cakes, kind of like a cake boss situation. We were making like multi-tiered, very elaborate specialty cakes, and I was a very good cake decorator as a kid. And I was working on this cake for a state competition. I did like state cake competitions every year. This is so funny because this is really random lore that you guys probably don't even know yet. Did you know that I was a cake decorator? Anyway, for the state competition I was entering, I made a stained glass cake, and I had to hand paint the cake with like these beautiful translucent colors. I like made stained glass out of sugar, and I painted stained glass onto the cake. But in order to make edible paint at the time, we would mix either food coloring or like a food grade powdered dye with alcohol, and that's how you would make paint that would like evaporate and stay this like beautiful shiny color. My parents didn't keep alcohol in the house really, but my dad bought amaretto for the cake decorating, and that's what I used to paint my cake. And I remember everyone had gone to bed. I was working on my cake until like midnight. I was exhausted, and I was just like, I'm going to college in a couple months. I really want to know what alcohol tastes like. So then I took like a swig, like a big mouthful of amaretto, and it was disgusting. I spit it out immediately. It tasted like nail polish remover, and I cried so hard I threw up because I felt so guilty for drinking. And that was my actual first time drinking. Second time was at a college party with Avery. It was a BYOB party. We showed up with backpacks full of beer, like a 6-pack of like Twisted Tea and a 6-pack of like Natty Lights was like our perfect college bev. And so we would show up with these backpacks to a party and drink. The first party we go to, I don't drink because I'm really, really scared of getting drunk. I probably went to like 2 or 3 parties with her and then left because I was really scared of drinking, but that obviously didn't last very long. And I started drinking with her pretty soon after that. I think the first time I drank, I probably didn't go crazy overboard, but I probably had like 3 or 4 beers, got pretty tipsy, danced around. And I remember it being fun. I don't think I've had any crazy negative alcohol experiences, and I'm pretty grateful for that at this point in my life. Oh my God, is that all the questions? I'm at a point where I'm feeling like I really need ice cream and maybe a waffle. My favorite high snack is an Eggo waffle. I do gluten-free ones now because I have celiac, but a frozen waffle, a scoop of ice cream on top, chocolate syrup, like chocolate sundae with a waffle base. And I'm going to go make that right now. And I think that's just because the state I'm in is that I have to go make that for myself because I love myself and I'm high as balls. And this has been fun. Thank you guys for talking to me about this. Is this boring? I cannot express to you enough how much the comments help me. I produce this podcast by myself on my couch. Every single week I record the episodes and I edit them myself and I upload them myself. And feedback means a lot to me. Just like as a human and as a creator, it's really nice to know what you guys think about this. So if you could either comment on your favorite podcast episode or comment on this one and let me know what you think of the solo episode format, it would mean the world to me. If you want to see me perform live, sign up for my mailing list. It's at hannahbeckcomedy.com. I'll send you a text or an email when I'm in your city so then we can hang out sometime. And then, yeah, I just love you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And that's me doing a podcast, girls. Are my eyes open or closed? Okay.